Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And a good morning to you on Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. You know, you realize that I wasn't even alive when Pearl Harbor happened, and I have a pretty strong sense, though, of its import and the horror of it. But you gotta wonder if people under 40, I mean, how it must be like, well, if we had a Fort Sumter Remembrance Day. I don't think it means much, and I suspect I'm correct. Well, here I am, still positive, and hanging in there. Day I don't know, 10 or 11. Man, this is a bitch. I see that COVID is surging throughout the United States. But of course, that's our new normal in the winter holiday season. And I just hope that all of you manage to stay safe and well and be smart about getting together with the people you least want to make sick. Your family, your loved ones. And sometimes there's, I guess, the best intended. I mean, I'm thinking my family is like classic careful during this whole thing. We've all gotten all our vaccines and boosters and tested before we came, and to my mom's and all of that, and still went down. So, be careful out there. And as much as some people want to poo-poo COVID, maybe it doesn't kill us anymore as much. Although if you're over 50, the odds are, it's a scary disease, and I'm well over 50. If you're over 70, it becomes a lot more frightening, even if you've done all the prophylactic things that a conscientious person would do. So even though clearly as a people we've decided to not allow this infinitesimal little bug take us down in terms of living our lives, the fact is, it remains a formidable foe, and still capable of a lot of death and destruction. So I guess I can't be blamed for focusing on it at the moment, since I am currently suffering from it and don't see any indication that it intends to let me go. So just saying. Wow. Normally this time of year, this span between Thanksgiving and Christmas is a slow news time. I learned that the hard way by, trying to do 3-hour radio talk shows in that period when there was almost no news, nothing to talk about, and frankly, nobody giving a damn about anything other than holidaying. So this is an unusual period between the two holidays, because the news is breaking left, right, and center. I hope you guys didn't stay up past your bedtime waiting to see if Warnock won. I trusted the folks who said that even though it was nail biting, as if you watch the votes being counted, that the Democrats knew exactly how much they needed in every bailiwick and how much Walker would have needed, and they could see that things were going just fine. And so I went to bed relatively early, and and woke to see that was a smart thing to have done. So that is big news, good news. And I'll tell you, one of the things I think is most wonderful about the fact that the Democrats actually picked up a seat in the Senate in this midterm election is that I think the greatest thing about having 51 Democratic senators is that negates the power of Joe Manchin. Right? Now, unfortunately, there's also this nitwit, the flouncy Ms. Sinema. And so we've got those two senators who really are not on board with the Democratic Party's heart and soul, I think. But at least Warnock's win checks at least one of them. So we only have one now as opposed to two renegade Democratic senators. And the power that they have wielded has been lessened. And that gives me a great deal of joy, actually. Also, talking about now the midterms are finally over, and I just want to say that historical precedent doesn't mean as much as it used to, does it? Because we are living in historical times that are unprecedented, and so to take the precedents that used to work in what were then, normal times, it's absurd to think that those will necessarily prove to be true now. And so while the popular wisdom based on historical, review is that the party of the president in a midterm election gets clobbered. It's always happened, almost always happened. And given the fact that the Democrats went into this midterm with what we were told was an extremely unpopular president, highest inflation in ages, a lot of other, difficulties and troubles, people generally feeling the country was going to hell in a handbasket. The popular wisdom and historical precedent told us that the Democrats were going to be destroyed in this election. Well, it didn't happen. And in fact, almost for the first time in almost in 100 years, that's how extraordinary the Democrats' showing in this midterm election is. Not since, where did I see this? Not since 1934, which is like, okay, so it's 11 years shy of 100 years. Has the party with the presidency ever managed what the Democrats under Biden managed in this last election, which is to not only hold on to the Senate, but to gain a seat in the Senate and to gain 2 governors' mansions. That has never happened since 1934, which would have been an FDR election. So make no mistake, the Democrats did what we often think Democrats don't do. They ran a good race. Maybe not in every instance, and obviously helped extraordinarily by the ineptitude and disarray and insanity of the opponent. I mean, that must be obviously said. And speaking of the opponent, the Trump cowed grand old party. Wow. They just can't they can't quit him. They got no guts at all. None. He's a madman and getting crazier. He's harming them, hurting them. And they don't have the balls to stand up and say what they have been unwilling to say. That he's a crook, that he's a con artist. Well, a jury, that is true. A jury in New York yesterday said he's a crook. But we all knew that. I mean, the jury finding that the Trump organization has essentially been a 15-year-long criminal scheme. But then anyone who was paying any attention knew that. Trump was made up of smoke and mirrors. And that so many people, including media, fell for it is using the word frightening too often, but it is frightening. Yeah, Trump organization guilty on every single count brought. The jury barely, they went in with 17 counts, and those cases are always complicated. Taxes, it's this, that, and paper and all that stuff. And a jury barely took 8-9 hours and came to the unanimous conclusion the guy's a crook. This organization is a criminal scheme. Okay, and so the end result is not much anything, although it obviously harms his company. And any lender, are there any lenders out there willing to still give the Trump organization a penny? I know foreign actors are. Look at the $2 billion that Jared Kushner walked away with immediately after walking out of the White House, went over to Saudi Arabia and got a $2 billion payoff from the murderous sheikh. Crooks. Open, grifting, grafting, crooks. And yet the Republican Party is in thrall to them. And that's all you need to know about the Republican Party. Speaking of the Republican Party, I want to, it's amazing. Georgia, for God's sake, has 2 Democratic senators. One's a black and one's a Jew on top of it. That's Georgia. That's the same state that sends Marjorie Taylor Greene to Washington. Things are changing, and it's why we got so many white folks, white Christians, freaking out. Okay? Right there in a little nutshell. Georgia is represented in the U.S. Senate by 2 Democrats, liberal Democrats. One's black and one's a Jew. For the folks who think that this country is supposed to be run by white Christians, this is the kind of thing that for them sends them running to the gun store to get some more. And everywhere the Republicans look, not everywhere, not around here necessarily or next door in Ohio, because they're making gains in that upper area, my old home state, Wisconsin and Ohio. And that's where these white Christians still are able to hold so much sway, because you don't have as much diversity as you do in these southern states. But also look at the Southwest, because it was just, well, to me, time is odd because it seems like just yesterday, but it was certainly in this century, which is not even a quarter old, that states like Arizona and Nevada and New Mexico and Colorado were solid Republican states. It was a given. Well, all 4 of those states I just mentioned are now being incredible Democratic victories. Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado. Changing demographics. Why the GOP is so anti-immigrant. It's why they're anti-gay. It's why they're anti-Jew. It's why they're anti-black and Muslim and anybody who is not a white heterosexual Christian. And it's what'll do them in and is doing them in. And all they do is double down and go and get more guns. Now, they also are willing, obviously, to use the judiciary in any way that they can. And that is why today at the Supreme Court, this most consequential of cases that most people don't get, don't understand, and who can blame them because it's lunacy. But we have a lunatic fringe on the court now, quite willing to take this case, Moore v. Harper, which they're hearing today. This is the one that anyone who's paying attention is very anxious about. This is that idea that was considered a loony idea, I think just about 3 weeks ago, wasn't it? The independent legislature theory. It was one of those, it was sort of like in the same group as QAnon. Remember when QAnon was considered? Are you kidding me? What? Now we got QAnon in the Congress. We got QAnon people running for office. And we got the independent legislature theory before the Supreme Court of the United States with, as far as we know, 4 of the 9 justices already showing, tentative, at least, support for what would upend everything we have ever known about how we do elections. This is one of the last gasp efforts before they storm the barricades again of the Republicans trying to keep a handle on their ability to win an election. I mean, you got Alito, Thomas, Kavanaugh, and Gorsuch. Ladies and gentlemen, all but Thomas, brought to you by the grifter, traitor, Trump. And they're on the court for the rest of their lives. Joined by Clarence Thomas, who should be impeached, and his wife, who should be jailed. And they've shown great interest and even support in essentially allowing state legislatures, if this goes through, to decide that the voters got it wrong in a presidential election and to instead substitute other electors to be sent up to be counted on January 6th. This is exactly the scheme that Trump and the seditionists were trying to do. And now we've got essentially the underpinnings of it, the legal underpinnings for it, legal I'm using very loosely, in front of this court. Can you imagine? How could it possibly be that the people go and vote? And let's say, and this would be like in a state where the Republicans are in control, which is most of the states. And if the voters elect a Democrat, well, that Republican legislature can say, I don't think this is quite right. And can literally, I mean, how is that? They need to hear oral arguments on this? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Man, excuse me. So, Benny Thompson, who, by the way, I want to say, I love the head of the January 6th committee, co-chair with Liz Cheney. I mean, she's gotten all the, and understandably so, just because, you know, she took out her own burgeoning political career, put country over party. Benny Thompson didn't have to do that because his party was not a seditionist, anti-democratic party. But Benny Thompson, wow. I have so enjoyed getting to know this guy. And he apparently indicated yesterday that the committee, before it has to end its work, because the Republicans did manage to eke out a small majority that gives them control, well, control of the House of Representatives going forward, and obviously they will destroy this committee. He said they're going to refer to the Justice Department reasons why they think there should be criminal charges brought surrounding not only the riot, but also the effort before the riot to subvert the will of the people. And now, all that is it bears no real weight, a great deal of symbolic weight, and it puts some pressure on Merrick Garland and the DOJ to bring charges. Who those people that they will single out are, we do not know yet. But, man, the list is endless. And Liz Cheney suggested the other day that, remember those Secret Service memos that, not memos, emails. Oh my God, they all disappeared from the day before and the day of the insurrection. How did all those Secret Service emails just all of a sudden just disappear? But they did. And Liz Cheney has said that it is quite clear that a number of Secret Service personnel lied to the committee. And assuming they were under oath, last time I looked, that was perjury. So we'll see. You know, the legal stuff is going to now just it'll keep on keeping on. And I hope we all sort of steel ourselves for a news cycle that's not going to abate. And all of this stuff is so incredibly important. Chuck writes, Lynn, I'm right on board with you regarding historical precedent being suddenly less reliable. But we can't let ourselves assume that is anything other than an outlier. And unfortunately, I feel that this blue wave had more to do with Republican deficiencies rather than Democratic efficiencies. I think I sort of admitted that toward the end there too. The question is, Chuck goes on, can we continue to count on the Republicans to continue to shoot themselves in the foot like this? Probably yes. But time will tell. Yeah, right. God, I hope. You know, someone told me that they so want Trump taken out of the picture, and I do not. I think for the good of the country, he's got to continue doing what he is doing and take this neo-fascist party he has created out with him. The Republicans cannot be allowed to dump Trump and then continue on as if they had nothing whatsoever to do with everything that happened on his watch. What kind of a people would allow that party to just brush it off and move on and be considered respectable? It blows my mind, and it's one of the things I have against, again, media, mainstream media, is they do continue to just do what they always do, to act like, well, we got two parties, it's the Republicans and the Democrats, and somehow there's it's not like the two parties are in any way the same. One is a real political party with policies and ideas. The other is a bunch of neo-fascist, power-hungry creeps willing to do anything. Violence. Look the other way when violence is happening. Bring out the racists, the anti-Semites. Dump on women and children desperately trying to cross borders. Do whatever they have to do. They are the party of cruelty. They stand for nothing but power, and authoritarian power at that, because the people's power what I thought a democracy was supposed to be. Oh, they'll tell you it's not a democracy. They even aren't very open about that. We're not a democracy, all of a sudden they say. They don't believe in it because the vote goes against them, because they do not represent the people. They represent capital. I never finished Chuck's email. Sorry, Chuck. By the way, Chuck says, I heard Walker's concession speech, and I was surprised that he came across so well-spoken. Oh, man. He spoke slowly and deliberately, so unlike what we heard from him during the campaign. He was not reading from a teleprompter, and he was speaking from his heart. How bizarre. He came across as a completely different person. Well, he should just go away. Go figure. I don't understand any of it. Oh, God, I'm wearing myself out here. Okay, so speaking of the what am I talking about? COVID brain fog, COVID brain fog. That's great having that excuse. I don't know that it's true. I don't think I've had it, but I came upon this little item, and all I could think here in a little nutshell is why I say with such certitude that the Republican Party is a cruel bunch. Listen to this from the Associated Press. At least 38 hospitals in rural Mississippi. First of all, I'm astonished that there are 38 hospitals in rural Mississippi. At least 38 hospitals in rural Mississippi are at imminent risk of closure, and that's according to Mississippi state authorities. And the article goes on to say, despite Mississippi's high number of poor, uninsured people, the Mississippi government, which of course is comprised of the cruel Republican Party, has refused over and over and over to expand Medicaid for those poor people. And since the pandemic overwhelmed hospitals with poor, sick, dying Mississippians who could not pay because they didn't have Medicaid, which human beings in other states in this country that aren't in the thrall of the cruel Republican Party do have. Those hospitals that tried to help and save all those poor Mississippians are going to go down for want of money that the state itself will not allow. There it is, in a nutshell. Cruel, and craven, and bully boys. They're pathetic. Hey, you see, Germany's got a similar crowd. Yeah, the Germans rounded up all over the country, I guess, today. They were in all different kinds of, I don't know, are they provinces there? I know they're not. They states. arrested a whole bunch of people who they said were intending an imminent attack on the German government. And guess what? It's the same kind of loonies. The German loonies have all succumbed to the same crapola. They're QAnon types. They full on QAnon. QAnon makes its way to Germany. And they were armed to the teeth, which isn't easy in Germany, I guess, and fully intending to take out governments and install their own. I mean, it's obviously insane. Run by some guy who still thinks he's a prince from some old German royal lineage, inbred. Unbelievable. All right. Yeah. The GOP. Unbelievable. It just blows my mind that anybody who would consider themselves truly Christian could ever support the unchristian cruelty to the least of us that is as close to policy as the Republicans come. Now, when I say they have no policy, I'm not just saying that. Remember, they so don't have any policy that the last time they ran in a national campaign, they didn't even put out a platform. A platform, often it's a basket of all kinds of, here's what we'll do, and, it doesn't happen, but here's what we say we're going to do. And they didn't even have one. As far as I know, that's a first. Because they don't. They have no plans. They have nothing they want to enact other than laws that would harm the least of us and prevent people from voting. Never lose sight that they are aided and abetted by a huge propaganda machine that calls itself a news operation, and millions upon millions of Americans believe that this organization is actually giving them news. And they're giving them propaganda. A case in point, of course, I'm talking about Fox News. Before the midterm election in November, last month, Fox News, this is something people, God bless people for compiling this kind of stuff, for watching so carefully. Again, this is journalism done right. Fox News aired an average of, it averaged out to 141 segments a week on violent crime. So it was feeding its audience prior to the election. Incessant stories. They dug up every violent crime that happened anywhere in the country, and the worst were, just stuck up there, more blood, and the more it was like black people doing it or immigrants doing it, the better. And that is the diet of news that Fox fed its credulous audience. Now, it coincided, because this is an organized propaganda arm of the Republican Party, it coincided with what Republican candidates in the midterm were darkly warning their voters the Democrats would do, which is let criminals out of jail. I mean, you saw it play out here with Fetterman, right? You saw it play out if you paid attention to any of the Senate contests, a lot of the House contests. It was all about doing what Republicans always do, which is scare the bejeebers out of their, again, credulous folk about the blood in the streets. And hey, I'm not saying there isn't, because I'm concerned. But the blood in the streets is mostly the result of Republican policies. Of giving a child an AK-47 or something upon birth. Of refusing any kind of attempt to curtail these deadly weapons getting into the hands of anybody in this country who wants them. Oh, God, excuse me. So, before the election, Fox News, its producers, putting a show together, deciding what we lead with, what goes next. You know, I worked in TV news. I know how this works. And you decide there's a priorities. What's the most important thing? What do people need to know? Blah, 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 blah. And what they did is an incessant effort to make their viewers feel unsafe. And to say it was because of Democrats. And they've been doing this for a long time, but boy, they really ratcheted it up. I know they ratcheted it up because the people who were actually counting and came up with this average of Fox News since September. So for 6 weeks prior to the election, averaged 141 segments on violent crime in the country and fed that to their increasingly terrified audience. As soon as the election ended, those stories, they didn't go away. I mean, that's their bread and butter. But they dropped well below 70 a week. More than in half. A true news operation does not do that. A propaganda operation acting in lockstep and at the behest of the Republican Party does that. You know, let's see, hang on here. When I was away for Thanksgiving, getting sick, unbeknownst to me, I'm glad I was unbeknownst because I had such a nice time with my family. It was worth it, I guess. And I noted, because the weather was so ridiculous. Just as it is today, what is it, 110 here today? I don't know. This is winter? I know we're all saying, hey, give me more of this winter, but it creeps me out if you want to know the truth. And I'm sure at some point winter, something that resembles winter will reassert itself. But the weather was ridiculous in Wisconsin as well, ridiculously warm. I brought all the wrong clothes. I was like sweating. It was like t-shirt weather in Wisconsin in late November. I have to tell you, that is so creepy. And I noted, because I was paying attention, that the weather, I think, was pretty good here too, right? But I also noted that Clairton and that area in the Mon Valley were under yet another National Weather Service alert that they shouldn't breathe the air. Now, this has been happening with such regularity, it's mind-blowing. Why should people live in a place where they are warned on a now regular basis that to go outdoors or to open their windows risks their health? And understand, the people that are risking their health are, again, the most vulnerable of people. They're the young and the old, and those with respiratory conditions. It's not as though we don't know why this is happening. It's the United States Steel and its friggin' Clairton Coke Works. And what does our county do? So Allegheny County, where its citizens are like gasping for air in the Mon Valley, they fine U.S. Steel. And Allegheny County has ordered U.S. Steel to pay $458,000 in fines for their pollution violations during just the first 3 months of this year. Actually, U.S. Steel has accrued more than $9 million in fines this year for its operations just in Allegheny County. And this is how our government sees to our health and welfare, by allowing this to continue and slapping the wrists of U.S. Steel. Because if you think those fines in any way matter to them, they do not. The fact that our government, Allegheny County, continues to issue these fines shows that they're essentially sort of in cahoots with U.S. Steel. All right, you won't fix whatever it is you're doing, and we're going to continue to come down hard on you. Because that looks like a lot of money to people. But what a government should do is ensure that its people can breathe. And if the source of the problem is known and it's a corporation that has flouted the law over and over and over again, and all you keep doing is the same thing, that's not acceptable. That is essentially, you know what that is? It's a pay to pollute scheme agreed upon by the mislabeled Allegheny County Health Department, which issues the fines, and U.S. Steel. Incredible. And screw all those little kids who, if they go out to play, are inhaling all those particulates, which we are told can endanger their health, can make them sick adults. And to hell with the seniors and folks with asthma and COPD and any other respiratory illness who are especially vulnerable to this. And we'll just keep on keeping on because, you know, U.S. Steel, we don't want to offend them too much. So we're going to just do this pay to pollute scheme. Let me explain. U.S. Steel posted a record $882 million profit during just the first quarter of this year. $882 million profit. You know, I think there's people who think U.S. Steel is like a beleaguered. Oh, poor U.S. Steel. It used to have its name on top of that big building that now says UPM fucking C. No. A record $882 million profit. And in that same period, our county health department told them to pony up less than $500,000 for polluting the air. By the way, I don't know if they ponied it up. I see here, I'm looking at some reporting, and it says a spokeswoman for U.S. Steel said that the company was, quote, still reviewing the county's demand for penalties. Well, how nice of it. In this area, and it's driven me insane since I've moved here. I've lived here most of my life. But government here is always going hat in hand to the capitalists. It never uses the powers it has at its disposal. It is always begging and pleading and backing up. Make no mistake at who runs things. And all you have to do is see the cozy relationships. And yeah, this is a Democrat. Allegheny County's Democrats. Yeah, corporate Democrats. Although they are being shown the door over and over and over again by the voters who are putting in increasingly more progressive Democrats who aren't as willing to play footsie with these polluting, frigging corporate capitalistic sons of bitches. Excuse me. Oh, guys, I'm sorry. I'm wearing myself out here. I have one more thing that I can talk about. Oh, and I also want to flag tomorrow. I'm going to have a guest to talk about the things that I so often don't talk about because I don't follow it enough. And this guy knows everything there is to know. about what's going on in Harrisburg. We're going to focus on Harrisburg tomorrow. My guest will be Stephen Caruso, who's an investigative reporter who's been covering Harrisburg for the last 5 years, 4 or 5 years. And you know what he was doing before that? He was my producer, Steve Caruso. He was actually just out of Pitt, where he'd been at Pitt News, and I have never met a more conscientious, smart, young journalist. And man, he hit the ground running. And he'll be on. He covers specifically the legislature. And, you know, there's a lot going on there now, a whole bunch of balls in the air, and we need to pay attention. Some of those balls are hard balls. That's some hardball stuff being played as the Republicans try to come to terms with the fact that they, in fact, lost some power in Harrisburg because of we, the people, in this last election. So we'll talk to Stephen about where things are, and I'm really looking forward to that. I also just want to say, in terms of politics, I want to say it's about time. I was so thrilled to see that Biden and the Democratic Party have decided to kick Iowa to the curb. Iowa is one of the least democratic states in the country. It's one of the least representative states in the country. It's about a bunch of, it's just cows and white people. And that we chose the people who would lead our ticket by going first to Iowa and then going to like New Hampshire. Are you kidding? When our party is made up of the diversity of this nation. And if we're going to pick a standard bearer, then you don't go to the friggin' people of Iowa and New Hampshire to decide who that person should be. This is a long time in coming. The way the Democrats want to do it now is they want to go first to South Carolina and then Nevada. Then they'll throw in New Hampshire. Why, I don't know. Then back south to Georgia. God bless them. And then up to Michigan. And that makes sense. So I was really happy to see that. And to think that we will not have to suffer through being schooled on the idiotic Iowa caucuses or have to see every eager politician eating corn dogs at the Iowa State Fair. Oh, God. And diner upon diner upon diner. Oh, God. So anyway, I think that's really good news, and I did want to note it. And guys, I'll do one more thing, and I do have 1 minute left. I was looking through my Twitter, which is getting not as, I've told you, it's just not what it was. I'm not getting the horrible stuff because I just don't, that's not what I'm looking at. But a lot of the people I was following are gone. But Bill Peduto, our former mayor, posted a picture today that, geez, I don't know where the hell he is. He's off on some trip somewhere. And it's a picture of him canoodling with the Dalai Lama. And I mean canoodling. Their heads are together in like a embrace. It's a lovely picture. But that's just letting you know that I thought, whoa, there's Bill Peduto and to jowl with the Dalai Lama someplace or other. So that was the only other little thing I had. And that's it for me. I'll be back tomorrow. And as I said, Stephen Caruso will be joining us. And I'm looking forward to that. Hope you will too. And I hope to be in better. Well, my voice was pretty good today, huh? Maybe. All right. Good. Enjoy the warm weather, kind of, sort of. Okay? Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.